4% today. That's pity. Okay. Okay. How are you, my friends? Yes, I see another students today. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Just let me adjust the okay. Today topic is midbrain and diencephalon. This is the small part of the brain, but I mean midbrain. It is the little part of the whole brain. It's really small, but diencephalon is also not big, and but that is very important part of the brain, because some centers of the hunger and the center of good motivation, maybe we sometimes call this center as the autonomic or splanchno brain, in another term. Well, I will start with the anatomical characteristics. We will take in consideration the anatomical and physiological characteristic of this part brain. Марина Сергеевна, перезвоню, лекцию читаю. Да. So and we devote this lecture to the morphology and pathways of the rhomboid brain, midbrain. Rhomboid brain we studied last lecture, and this part, I mean midbrain, and this part of the brain was formed in the process of evolution as a formation for organ of vision. Midbrain developed in connection with the visual organs, I mean eyes, and a new stage in the process of cephalization. It means another development of the brain formed forebrain, which is embryogenesis subdivided into two secondary cerebral vesicles, the diencephalon and the telencephalon. And in this lecture, in addition to midbrain, we will also consider the morphofunctional feature of the diencephalon. So today, let me show you this small part in yellow. we call midbrain, but this part of brain we call diencephalon. Midbrain is the product of the medial cerebral vesicle, but diencephalon as well as the forebrain or telencephalon was developed from the third or fifth brain vesicles, and that is the end part of brain progressed in cephalization or on the further development of the midbrain. Again, compared to other brain regions, the midbrain is small and developed, as I said, from the medium brain vesicles. Here, midbrain is the green part. Okay? This short segment of the brain stem, because midbrain or mesencephalon, we called it in Latin, sits just superior to the pons. Here is pons. This is the pons. And where it is obscured by the large overlapping cerebral hemisphere. So behind of the midbrain you see hemisphere and also cerebellum. The midbrain, another term mesencephalon, extends from the pons to the diencephalon. Here is the border between diencephalon and midbrain. And this part of brain is about 2.5 centimeters long. 2.5 centimeters only. So I hope you see this is the latest, the smallest part of the brain. Inside of midbrain you see the tube. This tube we call aqueduct of the midbrain. In other words, cerebral aqueduct. This structure passes through the midbrain and it connects the third ventricle here and fourth ventricle. So the cerebral aqueduct here is connection between the third and fourth ventricles. On the ventral surface of the midbrain there are some visible structure, and the anterior part of the midbrain contains a pair of tracts called cerebral peduncles. Here, this one right cerebral peduncles and left cerebral peduncles. Don't confuse these peduncles. This is a brain peduncles. Don't confuse them with the cerebellum peduncles. Here you see pedunculus of cerebellaris to the cerebellum. That is not cerebellum. This is the brain pedunculus. The lower border of the midbrain form the ventricle surface. Алло, Сергей Николаевич, здравствуйте. Лекцию читаю на английском. Перезвоню, ладно, как закончу. Хорошо, спасибо. So the lower border of the midbrain from the ventral surface is the anterior edge of the pons. Here, the border between pons and midbrain is located here. The upper border of the midbrain is here. Sorry, it is not right. It is here. As you see, the lower border here and upper border is here. So the lung of the midbrain is quite small, and you can also nicely see the exit places of two cranial nerves here, right and left, exit places for oculomotor nerve. But from the lateral side, laterally, we see two points where trochlear nerves becomes visible. It goes from the posterior surfaces to the anterior surfaces. So this is the oculomotor nerve, and here is the trochlear nerve. So the trochlear nerve is the fourth pair of cranial nerves, but oculomotor nerve is the third pair of these nerves. Dorsal or posterior surfaces of the midbrain, we can find the structure called the tectum. It means roof. This structure, it doesn't include the epiphysis. We called tectum or roof of the midbrain. It contains four rounded elevations. You see this one rounded elevation, 2, 3 and 4. So two superior elevations are known as the superior colliculi. We distinguish superior colliculi here, and functionally these are subcortical center of vision. These nuclei serve as a reflex center for certain visual activities. through neural circuit from the retina of the eye to the superior colliculi to the extrinsic eye muscles. Visual stimuli elicit eye movement for tracking moving images, such as a moving car, and they also scan stationary images, as you are doing this presented slide now. Other superior collicular reflexes are the accommodation reflexes that adjust the shape of the lens, the small structure inside of each eye, and the lens make possible to see far subjects and close subject, which are located far or close to our body, and we call this process accommodation, when human can see clearly in the long distance and in the short distance. This center, I mean the superior collicular, also make possible some vision reflexes, and with the movement of eyes, head and neck in response to visual stimuli. For example, if you see the light ray directed to your eyes, you protect yourself. You close your eyes, move your head laterally, and some other movement. That is the protected reflexes for the visual stimuli. Okay? The two inferior elevations, here and here, we call inferior colliculi in plural, or inferior colliculus in single. The inferior colliculi are part of the auditory pathway, relaying impulses from the receptors for hearing in the ear to the thalamus. These two large group of nuclei also are reflex center for the startle reflex. Sudden movements of the head and body that occur when you are surprised by a loud noise, such as a gunshot, for example. When you hear the loud noise behind of you, you always flex your neck, close your eyes, and put your hands on your ears to protect yourself. So this is the work of these two subcortical center called inferior colliculus. Okay, and here also visible the exit place for the fourth pair of cranial nerves. This is a point exiting point of trochlear nerves, the fourth pair. in the median midbrain section or sagittal midbrain section, here is the specimens cutting. This is a brain cutting on two halves, left and right, and we see here the right half of the brain. And in this sagittal section we can see three parts of the midbrain. Here the border of midbrain, this is border in red, and you see the tactile plate. This is colliculus superior et inferior. We discussed it just before. And we see also cerebral peduncle here. This is this is a white matter in comparison with the tactile plate. Tactile plate mostly consists of gray matter. Sorry. But cerebral peduncle consists of the white matter, and inside you see cerebral aqueduct. Sometimes we call it Sylvius aqueduct, named after famous anatomist in the 16th century. This was the Italian anatomist. He lived in Italy. And this picture shows the midbrain section. Typical. This is a pedunculus cerebri here. Mostly, they consist of white matter. Here we see the tactile plate, and inside of this tactile plate we see the cerebral aqueduct. Let's see the internal structure and internal organization of the midbrain. This is the same picture, but it is a little bit increased, or we use it on the magnification, sorry. And you see the tactile plate here. This is the peduncle here and here, and inside it is not very good visible. It is not good visible. This is a cerebral aqueduct. So let's see this on the scheme, midbrain parts. This is a section, horizontally section of the midbrain. We see anterior and posterior surface. Here, this is a posterior surface. This is anterior. Then we are finding cerebral aqueduct or Sylvie aqueduct, and two black strips called substantia nigra. Nigra means black. This is the border between the central part of the midbrain and cerebral peduncles. At this border we show in the next animation. Upper part is quadrigeminal plate. Then we see tegmentum of brain. That is something. Tegmentum means something what covers another part. So tegmentum covers the cerebral peduncle. Here you see two peduncle, left and right. Well, okay. And this is a classification of midbrain parts. We distinguish quadrigeminal plate, then we see tegmentum of midbrain, and the anteriorly located parts we call cerebral peduncles. What we see in gray matter in the midbrain, we see firstly central gray matter. It called center because it's located around cerebral aqueduct. Here is aqueduct, and around aqueduct we find central gray matter. Another centrum, they are very good visible near close to the substantia nigra, and this is called red nucleus. They were named red nucleus because when we cut brain in cadavers, we see really a red color in this nucleus by horizontal section. This two structure, this is a gray matter, belong to the superior or inferior colliculi. In the horizontal section, it is not possible to cut in one level, to cut inferior and superior colliculi in horizontal section. So we call it superior colliculi, but we consider that is also there is also inferior colliculum here. And from the central gray matter start axons of oculomotor nerve. This is two paired nuclei, motor nuclei number 4 and accessory nucleus. This is number 5. Another name is Yakubovich nuclei. And we also see central unpaired nuclei here. It is number 6, and it also has another name. We call sometimes it peruliar nucleus. But all of this and peruliar nucleus or central unpaired nucleus is really impaired because we could find only one nucleon. And the axons come left and right, and with the motor nucleus and accessory nucleus, they formed oculomotor nerve, the third part of cranial nerve. In the dorsal segment of the central gray matter, we could find the motor nuclei for the fourth cranial nerve called trochlear nerve. So it's here, and you see these axons make crossing each other and come on the dorsal surfaces of the midbrain. We see also some nuclei of trigeminal nerve. We call this nucleus midbrain nucleus. And we also see a reticular formation. This really looks like a net or retino. It means net in Latin, and it's located between red nucleus and central gray matter. What does this structure do in the body? I explain later. And here is a list of all main nuclei of the midbrain. First group, this is the cranial nerve nuclei, the nuclei for the third pair of nerves, and for fourth pair of nerves, but they are motor nuclei. And we also could find a nucleus from which is belong to parasympathetic or autonomic system, and we call it parasympathetic accessory nuclei. This small nuclei innervates the ciliary muscle and the sphincter of the pupillae. Because of that, muscle exist. We could see in different distance, short distance and long distance, and we could also to close our pupil. This is a hole in the center of the iris in our eye. And the second group of the nucleus, this is a nuclei of the quadrigeminal plate. This is superior and inferior colliculus, which provide visual reflexes for superior colliculus and auditory reflexes for inferior colliculus. And red nucleus. Now is time to explain the function of this structure. This is the subcortical center that plays an important role in the regulation of skeletal muscles. Usually they adjust muscles tone, and all this structure, I mean red nucleus, belongs to the extrapyramidal systems. This is a special systems. We discuss it next lecture. And the small part of the extrapyramidal system is red nucleus. What is interesting? When with some problems or damage or injury or hemorrhagia in red nuclei in midbrain, at the midbrain, or experimental transection. I hope we will never do it. This leads to the development of the cerebral rigidity. What does it mean? This is the result increasing of the tone muscles we call extensor muscles. So people lie as in the long position with some of foods here. Foods are like a line. Usually it's they have to be this variant, but they extend down, and some problems in the neck and some problems in the upper limb. And usually this is a result of transaction of the red nuclei. What does the substantia nigra produce? What kind of function it has? The substantia nigra located in the pedunculus here. I showed it on our picture, and it regulates sequences of the acts of chewing and swallowing. We call dopamine, maybe another pronunciation, dopamine, but I use Latin term. And dopamine is supplied by axonal transport to the basal ganglia of the brain, and this role is very important, because maybe you have heard about this disease called Parkinsonism. That is difficult problem. I mean, disease is caused by a decreasing in the production of dopamine in substantia nigra. When dopamine start to be dopamine is produced in the less volume, in the less quantity. So Parkinsonism will start people. What symptoms people have? Usually this is a tremor when the hands and foot moves like a butterfly, and it is not possible to start movement. Every movement look like a cogwheel. This is a small, I show you video later. Akinesia is difficult to start and to end the movement. Mask-like face, not clear speech, and it is because of weakened of the muscles, and movement in small steps. Let me show video about Parkinsonism.
По замедленной ходьбе мелкими шажками,
This is the small steps.
головой и полусогнутыми конечностями легко поставить диагноз паркинсонизма.
The patient is not active.
Акинезия, дрожание, мышечная ригидность. Паркинсонизм обусловлен нарушением функциональных связей бледного шара, черной субстанции с ретикулярной формацией.
So it is a problem with the reticular formation.
Увеличивается поток афферентных импульсов, развивается мышечная ригидность.
This is rigid when the muscle tone is.
Мышечный тонус изменен по пластическому типу. Выявляются симптомы зубчатого колеса, резинового хвоста, точкообразного
Cogwheel symptom
при пассивном движении конечности.
In upper limb and also in the lower limb.
Типичные подковые рефлексы. Стопный феномен, застывание стопы.
The movement is
И феномен голени.
smoothly
В прямом положении при пассивном сгибании.
okay.
Акинезия и мышечная ригидность проявляется нарушением походки.
It was woman, it was man, now it's woman.
Шаги мелкие, неравномерные, характерно топтание на месте. Больные не могут своевременно прекратить движение, симптом пропульсии. Какие были первые признаки болезни?
Первые признаки болезни были на часах работы.
Можно?
Take in consideration the voice, very specific voice. It is like, not like, this is the,
Не надо двигать. Нет, 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 не надо.
and tremor. Tremor.
Остановитесь. Успокойтесь. Теперь снова попытайтесь.
Okay, and all of these symptoms are are results of the black substance or black substantia nigra in midbrain. Finally, midbrain function, it provides friendly eye movements, which is necessary for binocular vision. Midbrain provides a vegetative function because it regulates pupil response to the light and accommodation as well. This part of brain manage orienting motor responses to the sound and visual stimuli. It take participation in the regulation of skeletal muscles, tone. This is the red nucleus function, one of the function of the red nucleus, and substantia nigra as well. And it is also combination. This is a combined movements of our eyes and head, rather neck. When we rotate our neck, but eyes can see the same point. That is function in midbrain. White matter of the midbrain. We distinguish two pathways, motor pathways. This is the impulses go down, and sensory pathways when nerve impulses come up. We see pedunculus, and here I will call in Latin tractus cortica pontinus between cerebral and occipital pontinus. Sorry, occipital, not cortical. Occipital. This is a error. And go to the pontinus, to the lower part of the brain. Then we could find frontopontinous tract and two pyramidal tract, tractus cortica nuclearis and tractus cortica spinalis. I pronounce this in Latin. Two tracts from the collicular superior, tractus tectospinalis, and tractus rubrospinalis as well. And also we find fasciculus longitudinalis medialis. This pathways helps to coordinate the eye and neck movements. Sensory pathway. This is the four lemniscus medialis for proprioception, lemniscus trigeminalis for general sensitivity of the head and some part of neck, lemniscus spinalis. This is a superficial sensitivity of the body and limbs, and lemniscus lateralis. This is auditory sensitivity. Here you see the reaction when performed by the tractus tectospinalis. These fibers, this pathway, end to the neurons of the cornus superior, own nucleus of the cornus superior or anterior horns in the spinal cord, and ensure performance protective reflexes. This is light effect and hearing effect. So when overlap visual and auditory stimulus, people do something like this picture. Diencephalon. Diencephalon has such parts like a thalamus 1, a metathalamus 2, epithalamus 3rd, hypothalamus 4th, and subthalamus 5th. And the cavity of the diencephalon we call the third ventricle. Posterior view, we see small pineal gland epiphysis. We see the peduncular epiphysis connected to the thalamus. This is the posterior part of the thalamus. This is also part of the diencephalon. And the third ventricle here. It is empty. It is not empty. It is filled with the cerebral liquid. The third ventricle. And metathalamus is the lateral and medial bodies, small centers for vision and auditory. This is the inferior view. We see this typical section of the midbrain. Inside of the midbrain we see aqueductus cerebri. And here in blue we see the structures of the diencephalon. First is optic nerve. Then we see the crossing of the optic nerve called chiasma opticum, and then later we see the optical tract goes to the lateral body on the dorsal surfaces. And in sagittal section, this is a blue region is the diencephalon. What we will see here, thalamus, one of the part, hypothalamus region, epiphysis or pineal gland, and hypophysis, pituitary gland. Epiphysis and hypophysis. This is a special glands. They secrete hormones. These biological active substances. And from the up, when we cut the hemispheres, we see thalamus in blue, epithalamus, pineal gland here, and some of the connection between epithalamus and thalamus. We call that connections pathway. Down you see superior and inferior colliculus. But what kind of function diencephalon have? This is a different nuclei in thalamus. Here is the thalamus, and they allow to they serve as an intermediate point for nerve impulses coming from the down part of the body and head and neck to the cortex. It is like a station, a railway station, when the locomotive stops for a while and then go down. So this is centers for all type of sensitivity: visual sensitivity, auditory sensitivity, superficial sensitivity, pain, and other type. Epithalamus. This is a part of the diencephalon located up up to the thalamus. This is a red point, red structure we call pineal gland. It is histological structure of pineal gland, and as I said before, pineal gland is an endocrine gland. It produces some hormones, serotonin and melatonin. Pineal gland, melatonin and serotonin allow to adjust our behavior during different period of day and also of the year. They increase secret of melatonin during spring period of time, and then it also produce the hormone we call serotonin. That is the hormone which help people to be happy. That is happiness hormone, very important. And melatonin is produced mainly at the night, and this hormone is photoperiodically. This hormone secret in the blood, we feel sleep about sleep. We want to go sleep, but as I said, modern people are poisoned by the light, and it stops a lot of light stops producing stops melatonin produce, and serotonin is primarily produced during the daytime, and it is also this is a hormone of the happiness, because it's produced also with the sex hormones, and when serotonin's secret produced in the blood, we feel happy. This is a memorial of the pineal gland in Vatican, in Italy. It's show us that this hormone is very important. And another place of the diencephalon we called hypothalamus. This part. This is a small part which produce a lot of hormones, and sometimes we call this part visceral brain of our body, because it regulates different organs. And the pituitary gland, this is another small endocrine gland inside of cella turcica, very important because Pituitary gland produce growth hormone, and when it is a small production, people stay little, and the littlest girl is Yoti Amge in India. She is only 58 centimeter tall, and this is gigantism and pituitarism, in other words. Well, this is all for now, my friend, and I recommend you to study more about hypothalamus in our student book. This is a student book of Gerard Tortora. You could find this book in our Moodle. If somebody needs this, it can download to your computer and see other. I'm ready to answer your questions, my friend. Please, your questions. There are no questions. Okay. Then we meet next week in our lecture for tailbrain. This is the biggest part of the brain. So for now, it was Professor Starchik, Dmitry, and I hope you will have time to study this section of central nervous system by yourself. Thank you for your attention, and see you next time.